The Office of Utilities Regulation, as part of its mandate, wants to ensure that customers enjoy quality service from their utility providers. It is to that end that we seek to find out every year what kind of service is being provided to customers and what are the areas that need improvement. Hello, I am Elizabeth Bennett Marsh of the Office of Utilities Regulation, and thank you for joining us for this webinar as we review the findings of our 2022 Mystery Shopping Survey, which was undertaken on our behalf by Market Research Services Limited. With me today are Beverly Green, Consumer Affairs Officer at the OUR, and who was the project manager for our mystery shopping exercise. We also have joining us Kishka K. Anderson, Chief Executive Officer of Market Research Services Limited. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
The format for today's webinar is as follows. Beverly will give an overview of the mystery shopping exercise before handing over to Kishkake, who will provide the details of the findings. Afterwards, we invite your questions via our YouTube and Facebook platforms. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you are in the world today. I now hand over to Beverly.
Thanks, Liz. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are happy you were able to join us as we provide details of the findings of OUR's 2022 Mystery Shopping Survey, which was conducted by Market Research Services Limited. We decided to conduct another mystery shopping exercise based on the result of the survey 2020-2021. This year's exercise saw a wide range of scenarios being implemented. This became necessary due to the changes that came with COVID-19 and the resultant change in customers' experiences
Thanks, Liz.
when dealing with the
This
utilities.
became necessary.
These were
Changes that
specific to the different utility companies and applied equally across the different service modalities, that is, in store, call center, web chat. These changes have resulted in a new baseline set of results that are not comparable to the other years. Our objectives of these research were as follows:
these
to
changes
ascertain the level of customer satisfaction provided by service providers in store and web chat, namely Flow, Digicel, NWC, and JPS. To ascertain the major areas of satisfaction and dissatisfaction with customer service, and ascertain the means by which the areas of dissatisfaction can be improved. To ascertain what addition, if any, there should be to the JPS and NWC guaranteed standards, to ascertain the customer satisfaction in relation to the provision of service of the utility service in areas such as service quality, to determine the level of satisfaction and dissatisfaction there is with how the operators communicate with consumers, and to determine the level of satisfaction with the customer service offered by the operators. I now invite Ms. Kishka K. Anderson, Chief Executive Officer of Market Research Services, to share the findings. Kishka?
Thank you very much, Bev,
Offered
and
by the
thanks to you,
operator.
Liz. Welcome to all our
I
audience
know
this
in fact.
morning. Thanks for taking the time to allow me to share with you the results of the 2022
Thank
Mystery
you
Shopping
very
Survey.
much.
It's not always been, it's not
Thanks to
always
you.
easy
Welcome to all
sitting
our
in the
audience
messenger
this morning.
seat
Thanks for
because you
taking the
have to
time
give the good or
to
the
allow
bad
me to
news.
share
I
with
will
you
allow
the
you to be the
results
judge
of
this morning of how you
2022. Thank
think
you very much.
this messenger will be received
Not
today.
always easy.
But thanks again. I will begin by just explaining to you what the mystery
I will
shopping
allow
is
you to be the
all
judge.
about. And as it says, it's a mystery shopping. So, what happens is that individuals go to the various utility companies and they play the role of customers by making calls, visiting the stores, or accessing the chat platforms in order to gauge a typical customer's experience. They remain anonymous throughout the entire shopping journey. Each shopper is given a scenario, a specific scenario to shop. And in the case of the telecoms, we specifically send them to ask about internet, to inquire about bill payment via the IVR, to inquire about bill payment via app, as well as the refund process. In the case of JPS, they inquired about a bill estimate, service application, upgrading deposit, as well as the refund process. And in the case of NWC, water scheduling, water billing, and the refund process. The shopper scenarios are determined by the OUR, and these are typically based on the complaints and the feedback they receive from customers throughout the year. So I will begin to share with you the results. Just as an overview. And in this chart, I'm sharing with you what was the performance of all utilities in total experience. The average score across all the four firms that we evaluated is 49%. So this tells you that there's nobody that's really performing outstanding. An average score of 49%, a maximum is 100%. Nonetheless, we try to see where the different utility companies are. And my chart is showing that JPS stands out as the winner this year with 56% score overall. Digicel, 55%, so very close there. Tight race between JPS and Digicel. NWC and Flow are below that average score of 49% at 45% and 38% respectively. For the rest of the presentation, I will delve into detail for each of the providers so you can see exactly where the strengths are and where the weaknesses are. So let's begin with Flow. So just in terms of a summary, we looked at the in-store experience, call center, WhatsApp, as well as online chat via the website. And what this is saying is that Flow performs best in store with an overall score of 64%. Call center was next, 46%, WhatsApp chat, 34%, and online chat, 8%, pulling down their average meaningfully. So let's just get a little bit closer into the findings, or a little deeper into the findings, looking at the call center performance first. So remember I shared earlier, call center, 46% was the overall score. And what we do is we're sharing with you how they performed in the different scenarios that the shopper tested. Well, my diamond is showing that Flow performed best in call center when it came on to inquiries about bill payment via the app with a score of 81.8%. And they were weakest in terms of bill payment via IVR with a score of 12.5%. So let's see how they did in store. Overall score of 64%. Recall that this was the area they performed best in. And they did best in terms of bill payment via the IVR with a score of 71.5% and weakest in terms of internet inquiries at 57.3%. So how did they do in terms of their WhatsApp platform? Well, an overall score of 33.7%. Bill payment via the IVR, queries regarding that, 72.2%, while inquiries about their internet, 11.1%, pulling down that average. And finally, how did they do in the website chat modality? Well, an overall score of 8 percentage points. And they did best in terms of bill payment via the app, 50%, and they were weakest in terms of internet inquiries, 0%. How did competitor Digicel do? Well, Digicel, we explored only three modalities here. Flow, I should point out, is the only service provider that has a WhatsApp modality. So in the case of Digicel, we looked at call center, in-store, and online chat. And we're seeing here that they had an overall average of about 55%, and call center is the area that they performed best in, 61%, followed behind by their in-store service delivery, 59%, online chat at 46%. Let's see what happened in each scenario. So call center overall score 60%. Where did they perform best? In the refund process. Questions regarding the refund process, 93.8%, an excellent score. And they were weakest in the bill payment via IVR at 30%. So how did they do in store? Well, in store, they performed best with regards to bill payment queries via the IVR at 72.2%, but they were weakest in terms of their facilities. And in terms of facilities, we look at the physical environment. Did they have signage, facilities for the disabled, and so on? Those are the specific things that we investigated, 47.5%. What about online chat? Well, an overall score of 46%, and they were best in terms of just the general factors that we evaluated in terms of online responsiveness to the chat. Did you feel like you're speaking to somebody like a live person? Those are the questions that we typically ask. And they got a 75% score there. When it came on to bill payment via the app, they were weakest though with 16.7% score. Now moving on to JPS. How did JPS do? Remember, JPS is the overall winner this year, and they performed best in their call center service delivery with a score of 89%. In store, 60%, online chat, 21%. And I just use the opportunity to just say, well done, Digicel. I mean, JPS, pardon me. And let's see how they did in terms of the call center performance. Well, 88.6% overall score with a perfect score in terms of the upgrade and deposit. Queries about upgrading and the deposit system that they have. 100%. That was the highest score that was recorded this year. In terms of service application, though, they were weakest in that area with a 66.7%. But overall, if you look at the picture of this chart, JPS has just done very well in terms of its call center delivery. Let's see what happens in store though. In store, not so well, 59.5%, with the highest performing area in the upgrade and deposit scenario, 88.0%. And then with regards to service application, that's where they fell down badly, 25%. So how did they do in online chat? 21.2% overall score. And by now you will see that none of the utilities so far is doing well in the online chat, but I don't want to steal my thunder for the conclusion yet. So let's just continue here. We're seeing that 21.2% overall score. How they did best in bill estimate, 66.7%, and refund process, 0%, pulling down that average significantly. So now we move on to NWC. And how did NWC do across the three modalities? Well, in-store best at 63 percentage points performance, followed behind by call center, 57%, and online chat at 17%, for an overall average of about 45%. So let's see where did they do best in each of these scenarios and where they really need to focus their attention on. Starting with the call center with an overall average recall of 56.8%, and their diamond performer was in terms of their water billing, queries about water billing, 80% score. But they fell down in regards to their responses to queries about the refund process, 43.8 percentage points. What about in store? Well, 62.6 percentage point score, diamond performance in terms of the water scheduling at 74.7% points, and they fell down with regards to their response to queries in terms of the billing at 48.8 percentage points. And online chat, 16%, roughly 17% overall average, but they did well in terms of queries regarding water billing at 80%, but they fell down meaningfully in terms of water scheduling at 8.3 percentage points. So, what does all of this mean for the utilities and, in particular, the OUR who monitors them? Let's see the conclusions that we're drawing. Well, what we see is that in store performance across all the providers were pretty similar in terms of the scores achieved. Notwithstanding, we'd like to highlight that the best performance came from Flow at 64%, followed by NWC 63%, JPS 60%, and Digicel 59%. So if you look at those percentages, not much of a difference between each of the utility providers in in-store performance. What's happening in call center though? We see a little bit more variability in terms of the scores obtained. JPS delivered the best performance in call center with an overall average of 89%. This score was bolstered significantly by that 100% score they got in peak periods, in particular the peak periods. Digicel had the best call center performance at the next best, my apologies, at 61%, followed by NWC 57% and Flow at 46%. But what of online chat? Well, the overall performance in online was the weakest across all utilities. Digicel delivers the best online chat performance with 46%. So you see, we have quite a big way to go to that 100% mark, even at the top performer. This is definitely, though, more than twice that of JPS, 21%. NWC delivered 17%, and Flow had the worst performance with 8%. And what's our recommendations from Market Research Services Limited? Well, certainly we think that the utility service providers need to investigate customer satisfaction with their online and web chat services in particular. This is particularly so, especially important with the move toward digital as a key service modality. Flow ought to seek to provide additional training and direction to its team in the area of responding to queries regarding alternatives for paying bills via the IVR. In the case of Digicel, we recommend that attempts be made to improve the staff knowledge and ability to respond to queries regarding alternatives to paying via the app. NWC should seek to give priority attention to queries regarding water scheduling and its refund process, while JPS' main area of focus should be in improving its staff ability to respond to queries around the refund process and its service application. We must point out, however, that JPS continues to deliver the best call center performance at 88.7%. Every effort should be made to maintain, if not improve this. The elements that drive the performance of the JPS call center, we suggest, could be investigated to identify whatever learnings may be shared across the other utility providers to improve their own performance. So, on behalf of Market Research Services Limited and my hardworking team here, I'd just like to say thanks very much for the opportunity to sharing these findings with you. I hand back over to Liz.
Thank you very much, Kishka K. And if you're just joining us, we just revealed the findings of the OUR's 2022 Mystery Shopping findings, and it was conducted on our behalf by Market Research Services Limited. Kishka K. Anderson from Market Research Services Limited, she's the CEO. She just unveiled the major findings, and we found it quite informative. And I want to delve into just to remind persons who are joining us on our Facebook and YouTube platforms, feel free to drop a question into the chat functions on both platforms, and we'll take them before we wrap up. We'll be wrapping up in the next 15 minutes or less. Um, Kishka, it is important to note that we did not compare these findings to last year's findings. Delve a bit more into what are the major differences between the 2022 survey compared to that of last year, and while it's not fair to compare both.
Right. Okay. Well, COVID brought quite a bit of distractions for many of us, but there are so many good things that came out of COVID. And I must say, the approach to the study was significantly improved because of the COVID experience. So what we found that it had us doing was looking at the tool, and we developed a tool that was more probing and more uniform across all the utility companies. In the previous tools, we had a lot more probing for the telecoms company, but we found that there was not enough probing across all the others as well as the modalities. So depending on the modality, that's meaning whether it was in store, call center, or online, we had a different level of probing. But this study, we decided to ensure that there was greater uniformity so that there was greater equity in the results. And so we can't compare the two.
Bev, we saw the performance of the utilities not being as good as we would have hoped.
Right.
Certainly, the best performance was from JPS, which a cumulative score of 56%. What percentage would we have found acceptable in terms of a performance level?
Well, ideally, Liz, we would want a satisfaction rate of 100%. However, we recognize that this may not be possible. So the international benchmark is 80%, and that is what we consider to be acceptable.
Mhm. Yes, definitely would want to see it within that 80% range. Definitely, that's what the
Yes.
customer deserves. Um, Kishka is the second year that we're going out under COVID conditions. we had to go in store, etc. We did some online, we did some via phone, but certainly we had to go physically to the stores and stuff. Um, Talk to us about the team's experience doing the survey this year, and did you encounter any challenges, and what were some of those?
Okay, well, certainly this year was much smoother. The first year of COVID was the pilot experience because that's when we discovered that we would visit many stores and they were closed, or we'd go there and the protocols were not what we expected. So there was quite a bit of struggle. But for this year's survey, it was smooth sailing because we had the experience of the previous year. And by then, we had identified all the changes that were made by the various utility companies. So we had no unusual challenges. The only thing was that because the tool was a lot more probing, you found that the mystery shoppers were put under a little bit more challenge in terms of the kinds of things that they needed to investigate.
Kishka, I'm putting you on the spot again because we noticed from the findings that between call center, so JPS shone with the call center in terms of his call center performance, not too bad with the in store. NWC was the other way around. They shone in their in store performance. Call center was second. But invariably, we're finding that when it comes to the online chat, this is where they're really falling down. What were we finding? What accounts for the very low grades that we're seeing with the chat platforms?
Right. Generally, what we found online is that the staff servicing that modality, they didn't seem very equipped to answer any of the questions really that we asked. So I'm not so sure about the level of training given to the staff in that modality. So previously, we would just check when it came on to courtesy, it's fine. Responsiveness on the chat, great. Polite, feeling as though you're speaking to a live somebody in real life, great. But when it came on to answering the questions, whether it was for bill payment, inquiring about the internet, the refund process, whatever it was, we found that they were very challenged to answer adequately there.
So that is something that maybe we need to focus on, because if it is that we know that quite a number of the utility providers are introducing the online chat platforms as another avenue through which customers should get them, even as they strive to go, to further utilize the digital platforms. So it's suggesting to us that there's a lot of work that's needed there.
Mhm.
I have a question from a customer. It's pretty long. I'll see if I can encapsulate it. I can compress it. My problem, OUR, is the JPS app. So we did test the app, Kishka. Um, there's data being presented that does not match with what I'm observing. For example, meter reading is done sometime between 11:45 and 12 each month at the end of the cycle. Immediately after, when the cycle begins, I'm talking seconds. The app is showing a reading of 1 day. So basically, what she's saying is that the app is lagging. That's what I'm getting from this, and it's something that we can. Customer, thanks for that query. We can give that feedback. It is a good feedback to have, so that we can provide that to JPS, especially since they have been pushing quite a bit of their services to their app. We know that customers, for example, can no longer apply for a new connection in their stores. They are inviting persons to do that on their app, etc. So we are thankful for this feedback, customer. Bev, have we discussed these findings with the utilities?
Yes, we have, Liz. We met with them collectively and shared the major findings, as we usually do. In addition, we have sent them portions of the findings that pertain to their company.
Yeah. And will we be doing anything further with these findings, Bev? Because at the OUR, we don't just do survey for survey's sake. You know that, right?
Right. Definitely it is. We every year we host a quality of service symposium with the large utility companies and the small private providers. And the findings of the mystery shopping exercise will be one of the main focus at this year's quality of service symposium.
A question from another viewer, very good question as well. Essentially, none of the service providers passed the initial benchmark of 80%. Is the OUR comfortable with this? No, Jamie, we are definitely not comfortable with this at all. You would have heard Bev mentioned a while ago that we will be discussing further with utility providers at our annual Quality of Service Symposium later this year. What they intend to do, we'd have shared the findings with them. and we would ask them to report on it at the QoS symposium that we'll be having later this year. And collectively, we'll knock heads to see how best we can work towards improving the quality of service so that we'll see much better results next year when we go back into the field. So, definitely not. We are far from comfortable or happy with these results. Um, Kishka, you pointed out that utilities fell down in relation to online platforms as well, and I touched on the chat. What else are we picking up here? Is there anything else that we need to be mindful of, especially the utility providers?
Yes, I mean, as Jamie said, and I'm very happy to see that question. I know I'm particularly concerned with that overall average of 49%. And just in case of just referring to Andrea, although we're seeing JPS as the winner, it's an overall performance of I think it was about 56%.
Yep,
It's
overall.
not saying that they're doing very well. So even
Yes.
though your own experience is reflected in the score, recalling that there are several modalities. So what this study is telling us is that the utility companies need to focus on specific areas. It's very detailed, it's a very thorough document, and it highlights exactly what are the areas they should be focusing on. Training of the staff is key. And when they present themselves in whatever modality, the service level needs to be of the same standard going across. So that is one of the things that we certainly observed.
Yes. And training, we want to talk a bit more about that, Kishka, because training not just deals with courteousness, because we did find
That's
the staff being courteous at points, but the extent to which they are aware or they're sufficiently
mm-hmm,
informed to adequately address the queries, that
mm-hmm,
was the source of frustration for some of your shoppers. And
right,
certainly would have got that feedback from our customers as well, that they didn't feel that the customer service representatives were sufficiently trained to be able to answer their queries, to adequately address their queries, and they were not always able to speak with a supervisor, leaving very frustrated customers at the other end of the line.
right. And I'd just like to point out to Liz, if you will allow me, if you look at the scores, the performance in terms of bill payment via app and the IVR,
Mm-hmm.
especially where they kept on falling down. And in a day when they're pushing customers to the digital platform, it is important, especially that we focus on the service delivery there. If customers are to be encouraged to use those platforms, in store, we saw was pretty better than any other modality, and call center too. But certainly online is much, leaves much to be desired.
Yeah, yeah. Ladies, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. We just decided to do a very quick thing to just inform our listeners and our customers about our latest findings. We want them to keep abreast of what is happening at the OUR and to help us to hold the utility providers accountable. You can rest assured that we will be following up with these findings, ladies and gentlemen. If you want more information, feel free to go to our website. We have a truncated version of the findings on our website, our.org.jm. We also issued a media release on this last month, and we do have that on our website as well. Feel free to continue to send us questions and queries pertaining to this. You can always contact us at consumer@our.org.jm. I want to thank you, Kishka K. Anderson from Market Research Services Limited, Beverly Green from OUR. She was the project manager in charge of our mystery shopping exercise. Our producer today was Gordon Brown, and we got technical support from Visual Tech. We want to thank you very much for joining us. Continue to keep safe. I am Elizabeth Bennett Marsh. Goodbye for now.